I shouldn't have opened that file. They warned me and I didn't listen. I thought it was just some stupid myth. Maybe a bad Photoshop job, but I was wrong. And now he's here, watching me in every dark corner, every shadow, every blink. So I beg of you, Janice, please just listen to me. Please, if you have anything to live for, no matter how insignificant it may seem, turn this off. Or he'll take you too. My name is Elijah Joseph Lee, and I'm 42 years old. But I guess you already know that. I got into private investigating about 11 years ago, hoping to make the world a better place. Instead, I mainly settle neighborhood disputes and the occasional insurance fraud from the comfort of my small, dusty office. After the 8th year, work life had become monotonous and honestly draining. That was until you came along. I initially hired you to manage my emails, but it became something much more. You brought light back into my dark office. Something about your smile and our stupid banter always made work bearable. You're one of the few people I consider a friend. That's why I'm truly sorry. It was June 18th, 2011, when you handed me a printed copy of an email from one Bethany Connolly. The email is attached. Dear Detective Lee, I'm reaching out to see if you're currently taking new clients. I need help looking into a recent incident involving my son, Robert Connolly. The circumstances surrounding their death are unclear, and I believe there may be more to the story than what the police have concluded. I'm happy to provide any relevant documents, reports, or communications that might help you assess whether this is something you'd be willing to take on. Please let me know your availability for a call or meeting. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Bethany Connolly, 407-734-0254. I looked up from the paper presented to me, taking off my glasses as I did. Why am I looking at this? You responded quickly, as if the answer was obvious. It's a case. No, it's not. I already responded to her a week ago. Her son shot himself in the head. Not much more to it. You rolled your eyes as if there was something I wasn't getting. She says there was more to it. Most parents say that when their kids kill themselves. Did you read the other emails? You mean the ones that say he was always so kind and happy? Yes, I read those. Same deal. There's another example of parents unable to acknowledge that their kid was depressed and needed help. Come on, Janice. What's the real reason you're giving me this? He finally sat down in a chair across from me and sighed. The last few months have been nothing but insurance fraud stuff. This could at least be something. I shot you an empathetic look. Look, I know the past couple months have been a little boring, but I'm a PI. That's like 90% of the business. I leaned forward. I am not in the business of giving grieving families false hope. The Connolly boy killed himself. End of story. You leaned in to match me on the other side. Eli, just please look into this one. For me. Worst case scenario, you wasted your time and can go back to helping Mrs. Petersburg find her cat. I just really think there's more to this one. When have my instincts ever been wrong? Quite a few times, actually. I joked. I'm not looking into it. End of story. Well, that's too bad, because I already scheduled a meeting with her. You what? When is it? In about 2 hours. At her house. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief. Christ. I sighed. I'm not going. You're canceling on a client? No, you are canceling on a client. Send her another message saying you made a mistake and we will not pick up this case. I'm not doing that. I'm not asking. Get it done, Janice. You gave me the death stare. I didn't sign up for this just to chase cats and collect fraud reports, Eli. I wanted to help people. You grabbed the printed email as if it were a prized artifact. This is finally an opportunity to do some real good. You leaned back, sliding the email back to me. Just visit the Connolly house. That's all I'm asking. I let out an exaggerated exhale. Fine. But I expect a coffee when I get back. I'm your assistant, not your secretary. You smiled. Upon arriving at the Connolly residence, I was immediately greeted by an argument between what I assumed to be Mr. and Mrs. Connolly. I could hardly hear what they were arguing about, occasionally catching the words PI, suicide, and absurd leaving their lips. The moment I got close enough to hear what they were yelling about, they noticed me and suddenly stopped. Bethany Connolly greeted me on the porch, shaking my hand, while Mr. Connolly, whom I later learned was named Evan, stayed a few paces back. He just stared at me angrily, obviously upset about my presence. Bethany invited me inside their lovely home. The home had to be no warmer than 60 degrees, which, even in the Orlando heat, was a bit extreme. The white walls were filled with family photos and the occasional live, laugh, love sign. Despite its clean appearance, the dust that covered the furniture proved otherwise. She guided me to sit at the wooden dining room chair across from her. I got out my notepad, then she began to speak. Once again, I'm so happy you decided to take on my case. I cut her off. Hang on. I don't want you getting your hopes up just yet. I haven't picked up your case. I'm just hearing from you to decide if I will or not. Oh, of course. I completely understand. It's just that you giving me the time of day really means a lot. My husband just thinks I'm crazy and in denial, and that messaging a PI was a huge mistake. I agreed with her husband wholeheartedly. I, of course, didn't believe that there is more to her son's death and should have just closed the case here. However, there is just something about her that made me want to keep digging. She had this sort of radiance around her. Something that you couldn't find in someone who had just lost their teenage son to suicide, but rather, someone who knew better. This woman was completely convinced there was more to her son's death, and, in my experience, people with this much conviction tend to be sniffing around the right path. She continued. Robert had his issues, of course, but what kid doesn't? He didn't have a ton of friends and was picked on, but he was always so strong, till one day he just wasn't. Maybe he just hit his breaking point. No, it wasn't like that. He wasn't depressed. Mrs. Connolly, can I be frank with you? Of course. Nearly 2,000 teens die a year from suicide, and I'm sure that, in 90% of those cases, parents also say that their kid wasn't depressed. She scoffed in annoyance. That's not what I mean, detective. He was paranoid. Like someone was trying to get him, or I don't know. He'd lock himself in his room and wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Was he diagnosed with any mental conditions that could explain his behavior? She hesitated before speaking. No. Did he start hanging around the wrong crowd or anything of the sort? He was 16. You don't really keep track of your kid's friends around that age. I guess. Did he leave some sort of note or any noticeable warnings before he killed himself? She seemed offended at me calling it a suicide, but continued. No warnings, but he did leave a note. Someone who didn't kill themselves left a note? Noticing my suspicion, Bethany was quick to add, but it made no sense at all. Nothing you write in a regular suicide note. There's nothing regular about a suicide note, Mrs. Connolly. I know that, but it seemed more like he was scared than suicidal. I can send you a copy of it if you want. I hope you understand if I don't want you to have the physical one. I understand, but please email that copy as soon as you're able. She nodded, and I looked through my notes. You said he locked himself in his room? May I see his room? Of course. We made our way up the creaky wooden stairs, reaching the first room on the right. Once we got there, Bethany spoke up. I'll just wait out here. She held her head down. It's just... I understood and opened the door that definitely needed some WD-40. Inside the room was packed wall to wall with 80s movie posters and rows of old VHS tapes. Beneath the tapes were old retro gaming cartridges and a couple old accessories like the Power Glove and some Game Boy upgrades. Hooked up to the CRT in the corner of the room was a Nintendo 64 with a Sega Genesis next to it. I noted the sheetless twin-size bed on the other side of the room. I assumed that's where the kid shot himself and they had removed the blood-stained sheets. Other than that, the room was largely untouched, with The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask cartridge lying out along with an obviously pirated CD of an old Sonic game. Next to the sheetless bed was a desk with some pencils and a laptop on top. Next to the laptop was an assortment of flash drives that all appeared to be illegal downloads of movies. I spotted The Dark Knight, Fight Club, Halloween, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Cannibal Holocaust. The type of films you'd expect a 16-year-old boy to enjoy. What mainly confused me was why they were all on separate flash drives instead of a single one. Maybe he liked the idea of being able to hold all of them? I checked his drawers and found nothing of interest. There was nothing in the room that pointed to anything out of the ordinary. This just looked like your average nerdy teenage boy's room. I sighed, closing the last drawer. Just another average kid who took their own life for reasons we'll never truly understand. I began walking out. Then, I noticed something in the trash can. There was another flash drive. The USB portion had been broken off, taking some of the circuit with it. The cover of this one wasn't any movie I had heard of, but perhaps an image? Written out in red marker. Across the cover, read, smile.jpg. I should have stopped there. I wish I stopped there. But something urged me to keep digging. Maybe it was just Janice telling me that there was more to the story. Maybe it was the mother's pleas. Or maybe it was that flash drive. Something about that broken flash drive piqued my interest. I still don't know if it was just my own curiosity or perhaps some outside influence. No matter the reason, I kept digging. The minute I got back to my office, I got to searching. I first searched up smile.jpg. Nothing. I then searched up smile flash drive. Still nothing. Google just kept showing me listings of small flash drives. Just when I was about to write this up as another dead end, I received an email from Bethany Connolly. It was the copy of Robert's suicide note. The note read as follows. I'm so sorry. I can't take it anymore. Every waking moment, I hear it calling my name and telling me I'm worthless and alone. I can't even escape it in my sleep. I see it behind my eyes when I blink. I hear it whispering in the static of my headphones. It tells me that all I have to do is share it and it'll stop. I almost listened, but I didn't. I wouldn't. And now it's so fucking mad. I thought if I destroyed it, it would leave. But it's inside me now. I can't unsee it. It won't let me forget. I tried to tell people, but they wouldn't listen. You wouldn't listen either. I just can't take it anymore. I have to end the pain. I won't let this stupid dog take me. I am so sorry, Mom and Dad, and whoever else may be reading this. I'm so sorry. I just need it to end. I love you. Bethany was right. His letter did make him seem more scared than suicidal. But some people who kill themselves aren't necessarily suicidal. Some are just suffering and want the suffering to end. Based on this, Robert was obviously suffering. Maybe he struggled with a mental condition like schizophrenia and was never properly diagnosed. Maybe that's what made him feel alone and prey to his delusions. But there was one detail about the note that still stood out to me. I won't let this stupid dog take me. Was he imagining some evil dog? Maybe. It was a long shot, but I searched up smiledog.jpg. Still nothing. However, once I dropped the .jpg portion, few results came up. After sorting through the stupid pictures of dogs showing their teeth, I found one post on Reddit. Not the most trustworthy source, but I needed something to end this wild goose chase so I could finally go back to my actual work. Unfortunately, it's only sent me further down the rabbit hole. The post from a year ago was titled, "Smile Dog?" and read, "Hey, I didn't really know which subreddit to put this on, so it's going here. This may sound like it belongs on r/no sleep, but I promise you, this is real. About a couple weeks ago, I received a package in the mail with no return address. The top of the package read, 'Smile, God's watching.' Creepy, I know. I asked my mother if she had ordered something, and she said no. Inside the package was a floppy disk with smile.jpg written on the top. I figured it was some sort of virus or something and just left it in my nightstand drawer. A week passed and I don't know why, but I felt an overwhelming urge to just see what was on the floppy disk. So I did. On it is a JPEG of what I think is a dog, yet highly saturated. The dog is smiling with human teeth and its eyes seem more drawn on than actual dog eyes. When I turn up the brightness, I can make out a person in the background, but not any of their features. The longer I looked at it, the more my eyes hurt. So I eventually removed the floppy disk. But I can still see that dog whenever I close my eyes and in every dark corner of my room. I hear my name whispered where no one is there. Every night, I have nightmares of this demonic dog talking to me. He keeps saying, "Spread the word," whatever the hell that means. These last few days, it has only gotten worse. Now I can hear it in my head when I'm awake. It keeps telling me I'm worthless and that I'm better off dead. I just want it to stop. I tell people about it and they don't believe me. I feel like I'm going crazy. Has anyone else experienced this or know what I'm talking about? Please, I just need one person to believe me. I heard a female voice behind me. "Smile, dog." I was startled before realizing it was you. "Where'd you come from?" I immediately asked, a little too shaken up from this Reddit story. "The front door? You good?" "Yeah, I'm fine. We're just a little immersed in research. You know how it is." "Research? On Reddit? Didn't even know you knew what that was." "I know, I'm kinda graspy at straws." "Over what?" I looked away from my monitor. "The Connolly boy. I think that you were right. There's more to his death. You got that shit-eating grin on your face." "Say that again?" "There's more to his death?" "No, the other thing." I sighed. "No." "That's fine. Once was enough. Like music to my ears, Eli. Music to my motherfucking ears." You brought your attention back to my monitor. "So what does Smile Dog have to do with Robert Connolly? Ever heard of it?" "Nope." "Well, according to this, it's some evil image." "Evil image? Didn't know we were the Winchester brothers." "The what?" "Stupid reference." "So how does this tie back to our team?" I found a broken flash drive titled smile.jpg in his room. The same title that this user says was written on the floppy disk. Two people who experienced the same hallucinations and potentially had the same JPEG. It's at least a little strange. You want to know something even stranger? He pointed at the Reddit post. Every comment beneath it is deleted. What does that mean? I don't know, but that definitely is not normal, especially for a post this popular. I looked more into the user. This was their last post, and their username was rich_12781. Nothing useful there. However, what was useful were the other subreddits they were involved in, particularly r/North Dakota. Here, they had constantly posted about living in North Dakota, particularly in Lisbon. Through other posts, I was able to find their name, Richard Markson. Now I just had to find any Marksons living in Lisbon. After a few Google searches, I found him, Richard John Markson, a teen who was found hanging in his bedroom on October 4th, 2010, 1 month after his Reddit post. 2 different suicides of 2 different teens living over 30 hours apart. The only common thread was smile.jpg. I stayed in contact with Bethany Connolly for the days that followed. I had agreed to take her case, both for her peace of mind and my own. I flew out to North Dakota to investigate the death of Richard Markson and hopefully find this cursed image that infected these two boys. I had no such luck. Instead was another dead end. The Markson family was broke, and not long after their son died, they had sold all his movies, games, and electronics. The chances of them still having that floppy disk were slim to none. Still, I pried more into their son's life before his death. "I'm sorry, but what is this all about?" Mr. Markson had asked me after I had inquired about their son's death. I gave him my business card and replied, "I recently picked up a case about a teenage boy who had killed himself and, well, I have reason to believe that it is tied to your son's death." "The card says you're based in Orlando. How could our son's death be linked to a death thousands of miles away?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out, sir." "Well, I'm sorry to disappoint. There's nothing crazy about our kid's death. He was diagnosed with bipolar depression and was on the wrong meds. We didn't understand that till it was too late, and that's it." "I'm sorry to hear that. Well, you can keep my business card in case anything peculiar comes to mind. Have a nice day." The father nodded his head in response and shut the door. He had bipolar depression, a detail that had led me to look more into the medical records of Robert Connolly. Bethany, who had become more desperate as more trails went cold, supplied me with the needed documents on my flight back home. And there it was. Despite Bethany claiming her son was completely healthy, right there in his medical records was diagnosed schizoaffective disorder. "You said he didn't have any mental illnesses," I yelled at her on the phone, the harsh rain outside drowning me out slightly. She sharply replied, "If I told you that, you wouldn't have helped." "You're right, I wouldn't have." I took a moment to calm down. "Was he on any medication?" "No, we don't believe in that junk." "You don't believe in it?" "Yes," I scoffed. "You don't believe in it?" "Yes!" I hung up out of frustration, leaving myself to soak in the quiet of the rain. She didn't deserve a longer conversation. I knew what killed her son. He was suffering from depression and seeing things that weren't there. And instead of getting him the proper help, his parents let his condition get worse because they don't believe in that shit. The son begged for help and they ignored him. That's what killed him. These were just two kids who were left to suffer within their own delusions. The fact that they clung to the same delusion could just be seen as a coincidence. I'm no doctor, but maybe certain outside factors could cause people to imagine extremely similar things. I cut off communication with Bethany Connolly and thought that would be the end of it. But that couldn't be further from the truth. About a month later, you came to me with a file filled with information you had spent the last 2 weeks collecting. "What is this?" I asked as you handed me the file. "You know that Smile Dog case we were looking into last month?" "Barely." That was a lie. Some part of Smile Dog always stayed in my mind. "Well," you flipped the file open for me. "Check this out. 10 teens and 2 adults who have either committed suicide or report some form of interaction with the image." Janice. "That's not all. This isn't just recent. These cases go back to 2000. 2000? I flipped through the printed document showing statements and social media posts. Each and every one of those has someone who has mentioned anything concerning a demonic smiling dog. How did you find all of this and I couldn't?" "Simple. I'm young and you're old," I chuckled. "You hired people to do it for you, didn't you?" You let out a defeated expression. "Yeah, but it worked." "This one." I pulled out a paper in the back of the file. "Amelia Terrence. Is she the first case?" "The earliest one I could find. Good enough for me. Are we able to set up a meeting with her?" "Sadly, no. She committed suicide in 2001. However," you sat across from me, grabbing a notebook from your leather bag. You flipped through the pages before you found a page filled with numbers and circled the one at the top. "I was able to get the contact information of her father. I'm tired of dealing with parents. I can talk to him if you want." "No, it's fine. I'll deal with him. I need you to deal with Mrs. Petersburg. Her cat is missing again." You groaned. "How many times do we have to tell her that we're PIs, not neighborhood watch?" However long it takes, not my problem right now. You bitch. Amelia Terrence's father, David Terrence, had agreed to meet me at an Applebee's in Louisiana. He was very specific to meet him in a booth in the back corner of the restaurant. However, once I had reached the booth, there was no one there. Instead, there was a flash drive. I hesitantly picked it up and flipped it over. Much to my suspicion, written on the cover read, "Smile. JPEG."